Welcome to the Film Channel Movie Silver Screen. May God Save Us follows two troubled cops as they search for a serial killer, but the film is more interesting than that brief synopsis suggests. For the majority of its running time, Rodrigo Sorogoyen's second feature, following his cool, bleak minimalist romance Stockholm, blends police procedural, social critique, character study, black humor, and Catholicism into a taut and distinct whole that, with its emphasis on the investigation rather than the killings, suggests that the director is making an early bid for Fincherdom via True Detective. The film is a serial killer procedural set in a scorching Madrid, overwhelmed by pilgrims, due to the Pope's visit. Sorogoyen garnered attention for his crowdfunded film Stockholm, which depicted a one-night affair between a female on the verge of a nervous breakdown and a guy who simply wants to have sex and leave. Sorogoyen's study of male psychology continues in May God Save Us, but with a much larger scope, budget, and production staff. Tornasol, one of the backers, earned an Academy Award for The Secret in Their Eyes, while Atlas Media signed produced Woody Allen films. The film is set in, and beautifully captures Madrid's sweltering summer of 2011, when the Pope was due to visit, and the 15M anti-austerity protest movement was forming in the city's center, pushing the city in two opposite ideological ways, and causing one massive security issue. Alfaro, Roberto Alamo, from Pedro Almodovar's The Skin I Live In, and Velarde, Antonio de la Torre, The Fury of a Patient Man, the two investigators we meet here, symbolize a collision of styles. Simply put, Alfaro understands a killer's aggression, and Valverde understands his intellect, and in both cases, they understand it a bit too well for comfort. First, an elderly lady is found raped and murdered, and viewers should be advised that at least one of the film's crime scene tableaux, in this often brutally violent piece, will be difficult to forget. Alfaro sees these homicides as separate instances, but Velarde, who's repeated, mumbled, "Has she been raped?" hints that something is wrong in his mind sees a pattern. Trips to the mortuary, forensic evidence, and psychological profiling, which Alfaro initially mocks, are all part of the investigation. However, the script also investigates the two detectives, who share some of the characteristics of the person they're looking for, as well as the problems in their relationship. Alfaro is a thug with anger management issues that suggest the Madrid Police Department should reconsider its selection criteria, and which have an impact on his relationship with wife and daughter, while Velarde has a stutter and a lack of confidence that at one point leads him to attack and inadvertently hurt the cleaning woman he likes. May God Save Us seemed set to be a major hit when it was released theatrically at the end of October, thanks to a larger budget and the sponsorship of a TV station. Its basics are simple. Two police officers are on the hunt for a serial killer. Sorogoyen and his great artistic and technical crew have managed to make us shiver with their plot, understand their complicated characters, and, once again, question whether we are as good as we think we are as human beings. God, at least in its first half, is quite brilliant in its representation of Spain's social and cultural contradictions, which complicate the detective's search for the truth. At one point, a woman refuses them access because a friend of hers has been the victim of police abuse, while Sancho, another of the film's psycho cops, appears to be more concerned with the public relations aspect of their job than the justice-seeking aspect. May God Save Us is a multi-layered film with themes of friendship, brutality, and institutionalized abdication of responsibility. The film is laced with the quirkiness and foibles of Spain and its people. One major question with God Save Us is what drives it, and this is likely only answered in the final frame. This is the narrative of Velarde and Alamo's relationship across the tracks, despite the fact that they are radically opposite in practically every way. Social circumstances, character, and, probably, politics. Alfaro is a special type of horrible Spanish male. Huge and physically menacing but needy, yearning to be loved but defensive. To Alamo's credit, this total lug comes across as vulnerable as well, winning redemption in the process. Further down the chain of command are Luis Zahara Alonso as a third investigator, and Garcia Sanchez as their sublimely nasty boss Sancho, who does a fine line in hard-boiled speech. This is also a film about guys who can't control their bodies and women who become victims. The film explores how far Velarde and Alamo differ from the killer. Some of the men's anger can be attributed to circumstance or job frustration, but the violence appears to run deeper, being the consequence of both nature and nurture. The film takes a sometimes scathing look at Madrid's police force, focusing on one cop, Alonso, who fails to report a rape, and Sancho, the homicide squad boss, who tries to cover up the crimes because he doesn't want news of a serial killer raping and killing elderly women to leak during the Pope's visit to Madrid. Nonetheless, Alonso rallies and eventually assists Velarde and Alamo in their attempt to preserve the case. The police image is sometimes devastating, but it is not without nuance. The sound design is excellent throughout, notably a low in the mix drone that could be the buzz of air conditioning. Whatever it is, it's the actual soundtrack of Madrid in the summer. May God Save Us begins with a shaky camera and a powerful soundtrack by Olivier Arson, perfect urban settings, and amazing editing by Fernando Franco, Wounded, and Alberto Del Campo that never softens the pace. Then, halfway through, it transforms, using less of a raw style of cinematography and a gentler visual style, as the storyline becomes increasingly tense. Therefore, May God Save Us evolves into an unconventional buddy film that makes no attempt to conceal its fondness for Polanski's Repulsion and Chinatown, or Fincher's Seven and Zodiac. Sorogoyen had made it plain that complex psyches, twisted behavior, and dark atmospheres were his forte. Nothing thrilled him more than scaring and disorienting the audience and making them feel uncomfortable. For its last stretch, the perspective shifts and we join the world of the killer. The camera work, which had previously been primarily hectic handheld, also slows down. Alex de Pablo's photography is consistently pleasingly efficient, never merely spectacular. Though the tension is kept up, the picture has now devolved into a pure thriller, having previously been more than that. Its rather stylized representation of a Hispanic, i.e., fiercely Catholic, bug-eyed Norman Bates figure feels familiar and conventional, in comparison to the deeply rooted, frequently nuanced films we've been watching. And the Catholic Church has been chastised for its perversions of human nature since before Buell, so this is nothing new. All of this feels as genuine and well observed as the script's little authentically Spanish scenarios, such as the country's lethal, slippery, freshly washed floors. One lengthy set piece, shot directly in the city center, that begins in an old woman's apartment and finishes in the underground, with Alfro screaming at what feels like half the population, will go down as one of the best suspenseful sequences ever shot in Madrid. The film is about 2 hours long. One gets the impression that such length was required to convey to the audience how hard this investigation is, and how it has affected the homicide policemen's personal lives. May God Save Us is a long movie, well-paced and not boring at all. The duration allows to tell everything that is considered necessary to describe the crime story well, and represent the personal lives of the characters. Surely, without that balance, the movie would be more of a movie than a story about these policemen. If this film is special in any way, it's because it's about human beings. Dennis Lehane wrote the thriller Shutter Island in 2003. The novel follows U.S. Marshal Teddy Daniels as he travels to Shutter Island, the location of Ashcliffe Hospital for the criminally insane, in the summer of 1954, with memories of World War II still fresh. The novel was a national bestseller, and Martin Scorsese turned it into a film starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Mark Ruffalo in 2010. The film follows U.S. Marshal Teddy Daniels as he investigates the disappearance of a patient from Shutter Island's remote mental institution. Teddy begins to doubt his own sanity as he explores deeper into the mystery and realizes that not everything at the facility is as it appears. Shutter Island is one of Martin Scorsese's most praised films because of its riveting plot, strong atmosphere, and excellent performances by Leonardo DiCaprio and Mark Ruffalo. Hollywood has delivered yet another psychological thriller, this time in the form of Shutter Island. The viewer is quickly immersed in the world of Teddy Daniels, a deputy United States Marshal assigned to Shutter Island, a criminally insane mental institution, with his partner, Chuck Ull, to investigate the escape of one of its patients. Shutter Island is a facility that provides a moral fusion of law and order and clinical care. It doesn't take long for Teddy and Chuck's seemingly regular investigation to devolve into the weird. The audience is quickly lured into a fairly psychotic and frightening vision of not only the lives and psychological processes of the mentally ill patients, but also of the main character of the story. Teddy and Chuck are tasked with investigating the disappearance of a child killer, Emily Mortimer, in 1954. They appear to have no possibility of leaving the island alive. The absence of one prisoner may not necessitate the presence of two marshals unfamiliar with the situation, but we never ask that question. Not after the foreboding prison walls have been raised. Not after the visitors are escorted into the office of the prison's medical director, Dr. Cowley, played by Ben Kingsley with his trademark forbidding charm. U.S. Marshal Teddy, who is visiting Shutter Island with his partner Chuck to investigate the disappearance of one of the mental asylum's prisoners or patients, meets German psychiatrist Dr. Naring and immediately confronts with him. Teddy is accused of being a violent man, and Naring compliments him on his defense mechanisms. Teddy requests access to the staff files, but his request is denied outright. This is such a subtle scene, as it is throughout the film, that it is easy to overlook. However, in retrospect, having known the film's secret at the conclusion, we can see that this is the point at which Teddy first engages with the principal antagonist, his own proposed lunacy. Even if first-time viewers are unaware that Teddy's sanity is in jeopardy, the episode supplies the essential turning point by pretending to be about Teddy's investigation and the physician's passive-aggressive refusal to cooperate. Teddy clearly has no idea what he's getting himself into. Teddy, such a simple name in such a dark situation. Scorsese appears to be conveying a straightforward story here. The woman has gone missing, and Teddy and Chuck will go in search of her. But the frigid gray walls close in on them, and Cawley and his colleagues' offices, equipped for Civil War commanding officers, appear to be lifted from an Edgar Allan Poe story. Teddy's wife, Dolores, played by Michelle Williams, died shortly after all three of his kids died. There is little doubt that what the audience sees and senses as the film unfolds is greatly aided by the gloomy sounds and music that is incorporated and played throughout. It's an amazing phenomenon how music, or rather the choice of music and its use in films at important points, can make or break a film, and how it can also add to the fright aspect of any thriller. Teddy dreams of his dead wife, who disintegrates into ashes in his arms, despite being sopping wet, while forced to stay on the island due to a hurricane. She informs him, "Lettuce is here." Again, this is a super subtle shift, one of the most subtle first plot points, but it provides the shift that pushes Teddy away from the normal world inquiry and into his own personal desire to find Lettuce, the person he believes is guilty for his wife's death. Teddy had already received a psychological kick after being exposed to the ruins of the Nazi extermination camps. The inclusion of Mahler's music, which was prohibited by Nazi Germany, as well as Teddy's wartime and post-war experiences in Germany, makes for excellent viewing. The music of Gustav Mahler is employed to amazing effect in the film, and the choice of Mahler as composer and his piano quartet movement was a stroke of genius. Teddy Daniels was a World War II soldier who was part of the corps that liberated the concentration camp at Dachau, following what is likely to be remembered as the biggest human crime in human history. Craftsman Scorsese chipped away at reality piece by piece. Teddy's sufferings in the decade following World War II are suggested by flashbacks. That conflict, both before and after, provided the grim undertone of classic film noir. The phrase post-traumatic shock syndrome was not in use at the time, but its symptoms could be seen in men trying to appear confident in their unstyled suits, subdued ties, heavy smoking, and fedoras pulled low against the rain. Both DiCaprio and Ruffalo pull off this look, but DiCaprio makes it appear more like a hopeful disguise. Teddy tells Chuck about his wife's murder and his notion that Shutter Island is a site where cruel mental experiments are performed on patients in order to transform them into ghost assassins, while sheltering from the rain in a mausoleum. Chuck responds by claiming that the Shutter Island residents are aware of Teddy's investigation, and that he was led onto the island solely for the goal of catching him and removing him as a danger. Again, this works well on two levels. The surface level of Teddy's research, where he feels the impact of the opponent's threat to his job and life, and the hidden level, where Chuck is insinuating a critical point about Teddy's sanity. The electricity goes out the morning after the hurricane, and Teddy and Chuck take advantage of the situation by sneaking into Ward C, which houses the most hazardous patients. Teddy expects to meet Lettuce there, but instead finds a severely beaten prisoner named Noyes, who had previously told Teddy about the experiments being conducted in the island's lighthouse. This alters the conflict on several levels. For one point, it symbolizes a substantial shift in Teddy's mental condition, as symbolized by his frantic lighting of matches, which he avoided lighting throughout the first half of the film, likely due to the connection to the arsonist Lettuce and the fire that killed his wife. It also introduces new knowledge about the lighthouse, providing Teddy with a new aim and an opportunity to go forward actively rather than passively. Teddy believes Chuck died after falling off the cliffs. He descends but discovers no body. Instead, he explores a cave and discovers the woman prisoner who vanished at the start. She tells him she was a doctor on the island before being imprisoned for speaking out against the prison's methods. She forewarns him that the physicians will attempt to commit Teddy himself. This is the point at which Teddy becomes completely terrified of the situation he has found himself in. It sets up the third plot point perfectly. Teddy infiltrates the lighthouse in search of Chuck, but finds no evidence of experimentation. Instead, the chief doctor informs him that he is a patient, that his name is Andrew Lettuce, and that his companion Chuck was a doctor role-playing in an attempt to break through Teddy's fake reality. This not only provides an amazing slew of disclosures, but it also pushes the main character to a perfectly customized low point. What could be worse than realizing you're already incarcerated for insanity, jeopardizing your goal of escaping incarceration? The primary influence of the film is on the senses. Everything comes together in a scary foreboding of terrible secrets. How did this woman get out of a locked cell in a closed ward in the old fort, where the walls were thick enough to withstand cannon fire? Why do Colley and his nefarious colleague Dr. Naring, Max von Sydow, eager to play chess with death, appear to be hiding something? Why is it that even someone as charming as the deputy warden isn't quite sufficiently friendly? He's played by John Carroll Lynch, Marge's husband in Fargo, so he should be pleasant. Why do the tactics in the prison bring back Teddy's recollections of assisting in the liberation of a Nazi death camp? These are the kinds of questions that drive film noir. The main character is always flawed. Scorsese showed his actors the outstanding 1947 noir out of the past, whose title is a noir theme. Characters never arrive in a novel without baggage. They have unresolved difficulties and buried traumas. So, Teddy may not be typical G-man. But why are the others so strange? When Kingsley smiles, he emanates nefarious. Shutter Island has some stunning images. Scorsese also showed his cast Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, which has overtones of its hero's dread of heights. There's a chance that the fugitive woman is hiding in a cave on a cliff or in a lighthouse. Both involve traversing hazardous terrain, from vertiginous slopes to waves pounding on the rocks below. A possible hurricane is on its way. Light flows from the sky. The wind is weeping. It's a dark and stormy night, as they say. And that is what the film is about. Atmosphere, foreboding signs, Teddy's loss of confidence, and even his identity. Everything is done with faultless direction. Scorsese knows how to instill anxiety in his audience, and he does so in a variety of ways. Leonardo DiCaprio gives an over-the-top aggressive cop-like performance at first. However, his acting technique in this film makes more sense towards the conclusion. Shutter Island, also featuring Ben Kingsley and Max von Sydow as doctors Cowley and Nebring, respectively, makes for dramatic, stimulating viewing, and leaves some type of imprint, positive or negative, up to the audience to decide. After admiring the pleasure of music, the film's middle section comes across as a schizophrenic nightmare, and it's difficult to keep the storyline grounded in reality and logic. But nothing about a serious schizophrenic's existence is genuine or reasonable. In some ways, the film's ending is melancholy, and the viewer is left feeling terrible for Teddy. This film is complete, even the sections that don't seem to fit. Humans have a tendency to take careful notice of what comes before, and then draw logical inferences.